General Hospital today's full episode Sunday. Cullum is Jason's biological brother. Hey everyone and welcome. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please support me and give this video a thumbs up. I knew it. The results, music, aren't disproving. I am off. She changes everything. General Hospital recap for Thursday, March 19th. Indicates that Britt Westbourne putatively slipped up by revealing another sprat for Caesar Faison, while Pascal participated some disturbing news with Ross Cullum. At GH, Ava Jerome advised Lucas Jones not to let Carly Spencer trap him into choosing between her and Marco Rios. Since Ava felt that Carly was being manipulative to blow effects up between Marco and Lucas, she advised Lucas about that since she didn't want to see him agonized. At Windermere, Jen Sidwell shut down Pascal's repeated warnings about Lucas and allowed. It was apparent Pascal had a crush of his own on Marco. Once Marco intruded, he helped Sidwell with some documents before admitting that indeed if he didn't love what his father did, he still loved his purr. Sidwell was thankful for Marco's support and took off to meet with Ava, which gave Marco a chance to steal 2 of Britt's drug valises from the safe. At Carly's place, Jack Brennan got her to open up about her fight with Jocelyn Jacks over Sonny Corinthos. Carly questioned how a girl like Jocelyn could bring someone like Sonny to justice. So, Brennan looked shamefaced over what he was holding back. Carly also reflected on how it wasn't real love without honesty. So Brennan conceded that he abominated keeping secrets about his work. When an emotional Carly wondered if Brennan loved her enough to risk being honest, he got called down by a textbook. At the room above Bobby's, Jocelyn entered through the window and noticed Britt's luggage. Joss quizzed Britt about whether she was going nearly and wound up mentioning dirty Ross Cullum. It turned out that Jocelyn was there to make sure Britt didn't tell Cullum about her WSB agent status. Britt didn't get why Jocelyn would indeed be on Cullum's radar. So Joss explained how they crossed paths at Windermere during the blizzard. After Britt agreed to keep quiet, Jocelyn brought up the cigarillos and the dupe of Faison's book that she set up in Cullum's jacket. Britt didn't have answers about any of that, but she assured Jocelyn that Faison was dead. Britt claimed all that was left of Faison was his brain in a jar. His 4 kitties and her Huntington's complaint before transferring Jocelyn on her way. Of course, that 4 kitties comment formerly has suckers buzzing since Britt, Nathan West, and Peter August were the only bones observers preliminarily knew about. After having breakfast with Lulu Spencer at her place, Nathan took her back upstairs for further passion. Once the brace dressed laterally, Cullum showed up hoping to question Charlotte Cassadine about her fugitive father. Nathan helped Lulu get relief of Cullum by pointing out that Charlotte had been watched nearly and had shown no signs of being in touch with Valentine Costini. After Cullum left, Nathan and Lulu talked about returning to the real world. Although Nathan comforted Lulu about their love, he had an uneasy expression as they embraced. At the Metro Court, Alexis Davis argued with Tracy Cordine about who'd make the stylish guardian for Danny Morgan and felt that they'd have to accept Jason's wishes if commodity happened to him. Tracy also got a flood tide of textbooks from Olivia Quartermain, who kept trying to get her home for the family meeting. Ava also met up with Sidwell at the Metro Court where she advised him about Carly's manipulation and her belief that Carly wanted to tear Lucas and Marco piecemeal. Carly ultimately intruded and pushed to confirm their forthcoming regale party date. So Sidwell agreed when she suggested Friday. Back with Marco, he gave the 2 stolen vials to Lucas and refocused out. It was just a matter of time before someone noticed they were missing. Lucas stressed for Marco's safety, but Marco felt confident that he'd be under Sidwell's protection. After Pascal opened the safe and realized 2 valises were missing, he called Cullum to fill him in. Pascal refocused out that he formerly said Lucas would be a problem. So Cullum conceded that Pascal had indeed said that. Cullum assured Pascal that he'd take care of the matter and turned his attention to meeting with Brennan at the WSB office. After Jason Morgan recaptured his armament, he climbed an outdoor staircase and aimed through the window at Cullum. Jason was caught off guard when Brennan appeared as well, but he took end again and put his cutlet on the detector. General Hospital spoilers say Jason's shocking exit is just around the corner, so stay tuned. This is for everything. Cullum, screaming, "You shot me. It's done." General Hospital recap for Wednesday, March 18, reveals that Ross Cullum discovered Marco Rios was being dishonest while plans were made for baby Phoebe. James West also made a mess of one couple's date. So then how it all went down on Wednesday's JH occasion at Windermere. Cullum caught Marco digging through the safe and assumed he was looking for Britt Westbourne's drug, which Cullum was there to replenish with a new force. Since Cullum refocused out, it was Aunt Marco's turn to administer Britt's cure. Marco acted like he was confused on the schedule. Cullum called Pascal laterally and learned he'd spoken with Marco about the schedule before in the day. So he realized Marco prevaricated. At the Port Charles Grill, Lucas Jones dragged Elizabeth Baldwin down from her table with Rick Lansing under the guise of a work issue, but he really wanted to talk about her reconnection with Rick. Although Lucas obviously had reservations, he knew he'd taken a threat on Marco and was willing to support Elizabeth, taking a threat of her own. Liz ultimately told Rick she was interested in seeing where their relationship could go. Rick decided he demanded to be honest with Elizabeth about commodity. So, he admitted he didn't really go on a digital detox. Before Rick could unmask the verity about being held hostage in Alexis Davis's basement, Liz shut him down and decided she didn't need to know as long as it didn't affect their love. Now, once Marco met up with Lucas at the Airy, he admitted he struck out trying to steal Britt's drug cure and planned to try again. Lucas stressed for Marco's safety since both Jen Sidwell and Cullum had caught him in the safe. So they'd suspect he helped Britt after she dissolved. Marco was upset about Sidwell physically harming him. But he conceded that his father might cut him out of his life. Marco also didn't suppose Sidwell would let Cullum hurt him and kept the focus on the new life he wanted with Lucas. At Lulu Spencer's house, she prepared a romantic table for her date with Nathan West. But their evening got off track when Nathan's babysitting plan fell through. Nathan showed up with James, who instantly revealed the Chardonnay got Lulu's phone SPPY and attracted her, so she burned the funk. It all worked out when Lulu suggested having pizza at a place that also had an hall. Laterally, Nathan was suitable to drop James off with Max Scorpio and Felicia Scorpio, so he wound up carrying Lulu upstairs for some passion. At Brown Dog Bar, Britt shocked Brad Cooper by admitting she was leaving City to avoid finishing the prototype Sidwell and Cullum wanted. It was too dangerous to put that kind of power in Cullum and Sidwell's hands. Plus, Britt knew firsthand what happened to people once they were no longer of use to the design. Brad was stupefied formally again to learn Lucas and Marco were helping her pass to score a drug cure for rear engineering. Britt ultimately admitted her split from Jason Morgan was fake and that he'd be going into hiding with her. Brad couldn't support Britt's relationship since he felt like Jason was only going to let her down again. Britt tried to defend Jason, but Brad felt she was making a massive mistake. At the Cordine Man's, Brooklyn Cordine vended Harrison Chase on the idea of applying to be foster parents to Delilah Wilson's little girl, who they decided to call Phoebe since baby Jane Doe would end due. Meanwhile, Jason set up Danny Morgan making a sandwich and wondered how he'd feel about going to live with Alexis. Jason admitted he'd to go out of city for a while and didn't know for sure when he'd be back. Danny sought further information, but Jason couldn't get into the details. All Jason could really tell Danny was that he'd to help someone in trouble. So, Danny said he should indeed help since Samuel would want that. Danny allowed perhaps he could come with Jason, but his per shut down that plan since it was too parlous. In the end, Danny pushed Jason to promise he'd come back and got him to agree he'd come to his basketball game hereafter. General Hospital spoilers say Jason may not make it to that game due to some shocking news and unforeseen hurdles to his plans. You think you can just walk away? Hey, let's just talk about this talk. You're done talking. Whoa, calm down. The pressure in General Hospital reaches a fever pitch as secrets long buried claw their way into the light, kindling a chain response that threatens to shatter lives across Port Charles, beginning with Britt's shocking decision to blunder the verity about Faison's mysterious fourth child. A disclosure so explosive that it sends ripples through every corner of the oil, forcing doubtful alliances, exposing dangerous backstabbings, and drawing dangerous attention from those who will stop at nothing to keep the once retired Britt, formerly walking a precarious line between redemption and ruin, finds herself consumed by a blend of guilt and defiance. Her heart battling her instinct for survival as she uncovers irrefutable evidence that Caesar Faison's heritage is far from finished. That nearly out there exists another heir at law to his crooked conglomerate, a child designedly cancelled from history, concealed through deception and fear. And when Britt realizes that this secret is being laboriously defended by important forces within Port Charles, she knows she cannot stay silent. Indeed, if speaking out means putting a target on her own reverse. And so she orchestrates an advised leak, icing that the verity cannot be contained once it's set loose, driving a storm that incontinently draws the attention of Pascal, whose instincts edge the moment he hears whispers of the disclosure, fading the counter-accusations before anyone differently completely understands them. Because Pascal knows that Faison's birth is just a family matter, its influence, its power. It's an armament that could be used to manipulate, control, or destroy anyone connected to it. And as he begins to connect the blotches, he uncovers commodity, indeed more intimidating. A pattern of stolen specifics circulating through the sanitarium. A quiet but deliberate operation that suggests someone is preparing for commodity far more minatory than anyone suspects. Leading him straight to Cullum, a man formerly entangled in his own web of dubitation and secrets, whose response to Pascal's warning reveals further than he intends, exposing cracks in his precisely constructed facade as Pascal confronts him with the possibility that the stolen meds are Anton's insulated incident, but part of a larger scheme tied directly to the resurfacing of Faison's retired child. And Cullum, caught off guard but quick to recover, attempts to redirect to play down the inflexibility of the situation. Yet his apprehension is unmistakable, intimating that he knows further than he's willing to admit, that maybe he has been watching these developments unfold from the murk, staying for the right moment to act, or worse, that he may formally be complicit in a plan that's now twisting out of control while away in Port Charles. The fallout from Britt's leak intensifies as crucial players scramble to corroborate the information to determine whether the claims are believable or simply another manipulation in a city erected on deception. But as substantiation begins to surface, as old records are exhumed and hidden connections come to light, the reality becomes insolvable to ignore. Faison did have a fourth child, and that child's actuality has been designedly concealed for times, raising the question of who orchestrated the cover-up and why. And more importantly, what part that child might play now that the verity is out, egging fear and enterprise among those who flash back Faison's reign of terror, who understand that his heritage is ant commodity to be taken smoothly, that indeed in death his influence has the power to reshape lives, and as reservations mount, attention turns to those who might have the most to gain or lose from this disclosure, placing Britt in the crosshairs of multiple adversaries who see her as both a liability and a trouble, someone who has disintegrated a precisely maintained balance. And as she grapples with the consequences of her conduct, she begins to realize that owing the verity was only the morning, that the real peril lies in what comes next. As those connected to the secret begin to move to position themselves in expectation of what could come, a battle for control over Faison's retired heritage, while Pascal, driven by a grim need to uncover the full compass of the conspiracy, digs deeper into the stolen meds, tracing their origins and uncovering a network that extends beyond the sanitarium, suggesting that this operation has been in stir for far longer than anyone realized. And as he shares his findings with Cullum, the pressure between them escalates, their uneasy alliance strained by distrust and clashing dockets. Because while Pascal is concentrated on exposing the verity, Cullum appears more concerned with containing it, raising Dubai about where his commitment truly lie. And as their disquisition unfolds, it becomes clear that the stolen specifics are arbitrary but precisely named substances that could be used to manipulate conditions, to control issues, or indeed to fake deaths, leading to a nipping possibility that someone is preparing to carry a dramatic event. One that could either reveal or exclude Faison's fourth child, depending on how the pieces fall into place. And this consummation sets off a race against time as Pascal pushes harder, determined to help whatever is coming. While Cullum is forced to make a choice between guarding himself and doing what's right, a choice that could define his future in Port Charles as the walls near in and the stakes continue to rise. And amid all of this chaos, the identity of Faison's fourth child remains the most dangerous unknown, a missing piece that everyone is searching for. Because whoever that person is holds the key to everything, to the verity, to the power, to the implicit destruction that could follow. And as suggestions begin to crop, pointing toward a connection that no bone saw coming, the counter-accusations come indeed more explosive, suggesting that the child may not be a foreigner at all, but someone formerly woven into the fabric of Port Charles, someone whose life is about to be turned upside down by the Verity. And as the story hurtles toward its coming shocking twist, one thing becomes certain. Britt's decision to blunder the secret has set into stir a chain of events that cannot be undone. And as Pascal and Cullum find themselves at the center of a growing storm involving stolen meds, hidden individualities, and dangerous secrets, the battle lines are being drawn, alliances are shifting, and the heritage of Faison is formally again casting a long dark shadow over Port Charles, hanging to consume anyone who gets too close to the Verity. As the fallout continues to spread across Port Charles and General Hospital, the atmosphere grows heavier with dubitation, fear, and quiet despair. Because formerly Britt's leak about Faison's fourth child takes root in the public knowledge, it becomes insolvable to contain the enterprise that follows. And far and wide, from the sanitarium corridors to private services and shadowy meetings behind unrestricted doors, people begin redefining once events through a new lens, wondering whether the retired heir-at-law to Faison's dark heritage has been impacting effects from the sidelines each on. While Britt herself snappily realizes that exposing the Verity has placed her under violent scrutiny, not only from those who want answers, but also from individualities who are easily nervous about what she might reveal next. And the pressure mounts as whispers circulate that the leak included further than just a name or a scuttlebutt, but fractions of records, timelines, and hence pointing toward a precisely orchestrated concealment that stretches back times, maybe indeed decades, suggesting that the child was defended by someone important enough to manipulate sanitarium lines, legal attestation, and particular histories without leaving a clear trail, which naturally leads Pascal to consolidate his disquisition. Because the deeper he digs into the stolen and drug reports, the more convinced he becomes that the two mystifications, Faison's retired child and the missing medicinals, are intertwined in a way no bone originally anticipated. And his instincts tell him that someone is preparing either to control the narrative or to exclude a trouble before it completely emerges, egging him to approach Cullum again with new substantiation that suggests the meds were taken in stages rather than all at formerly. A detail that implies planning, tolerance, and access to bigwig knowledge. And when Pascal lays this out, Cullum's response becomes indeed more satisfying than ahead. Because while he tries to maintain his calm surface, there's a moment detail but unmistakable when the consummation in his eyes reveals that he understands exactly how dangerous the situation has come. Yet rather of openly aligning himself with Pascal's sweats to expose the Verity, he begins steering the discussion toward constraint strategies, intimating that the wrong kind of exposure could beget fear or unintended consequences, which incontinently raises red flags for Pascal, who starts to suspect that Hula might be guarding someone involved in the scheme or maybe indeed the mysterious fourth child themselves. And this dubitation deepens when Pascal uncovers a pattern showing that the stolen specifics include anodynes, rare stabilizers, and medicines that could alter medical tests. An intimidating combination that suggests someone could fake a serious illness, hide an inheritable marker, or manipulate a case's identity and sanctioned records. And suddenly the pieces start to form a disturbing picture in which the fourth child's actuality may have been hidden through a long-running medical deception. Meaning that someone might have been living under a false opinion or altered identity for times, shielded from the Verity about their origins and the peril tied to their birth. And when Pascal still shares this proposition with a trusted coworker, the idea spreads snappily among those formerly unsettled by Britt's leak, creating a growing sense that the city itself has been intentionally guarding a secret stunner. While Britt, despite the chaos swirling around her, refuses to back down, averring that the Verity deserves to be known indeed if it brings uncomfortable exposures. And her determination sparks both admiration and concern among those who know her history. Because numerous flashback how nearly her history was tied to some of the darkest chapters connected to Faison. And they worry that exposing his retired child could reignite old battles or provoke adversaries who would rather keep the once buried. Yet Britt continues pushing forward, induced that silence would only allow the manipulation to continue, especially if someone is using stolen specifics to keep the Verity hidden. And as she starts reviewing fresh lines connected to her leak, she notices subtle inconsistencies in sanitarium records that align eerily with Pascal's discoveries, suggesting that certain cases were transferred, renamed, or treated under unusual circumstances times agone, raising the nipping possibility that the fourth child might not indeed realize who they truly are. A disclosure that adds another emotional subcast to the unfolding drama. Because if the retired heir at law has been living an ordinary life in Port Charles, fully ignorant of their connection to Faison, also the verity could shatter their world overnight. And this study weighs heavily on several characters who begin still probing on their own, each hoping to confirm the identity before the news explodes intimately, while Pascal, decreasingly convinced that time is running out, pushes harder to uncover the final link that proves who orchestrated the drug theft. And his disquisition eventually leads him to a series of unauthorized access logs that suggest someone within the sanitarium has been designedly covering their tracks by spreading out the theft across multiple departments. A move designed to avoid drawing attention. And when he confronts Cullum with this information, the discussion turns far more violent than ahead because Pascal openly accuses him of knowing further than he's admitting, forcing Cullum into a protective position where he must either reveal what he knows or risk appearing complicit in a scheme that could destroy lives. And in that tense exchange, it becomes clear that Cullum is caught between fidelity and fear, intimating that there are people involved whose influence extends far beyond the sanitarium walls. People who might be willing to go to extreme lengths to keep the verity buried, especially now that Britt's leak has stirred the waters, and this consummation sets the stage for a brewing battle because once the identity of Faison's fourth child eventually shells, the battle over how that verity is handled will probably divide Port Charles in ways no bone anticipated, as some will demand justice, others will seek protection for the unknowing at law, and still others may say to exploit the situation for their own gain, meaning that the storm unleashed by Britt is far from over and may only be entering its most dangerous phase, with Pascal and Cullum standing at the center of a fleet-tensing web of secrets, stolen specifics, and hidden patrimonies that hang to expose not only the verity about Faison's birth, but also the lengths people have gone to in order to control it.